Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate Breakdown for Monday, July 29th. We are here. We're at the end of July. MLB trade deadline is tomorrow. So with that, make sure you keep up to news today, not only with the weather, but also trade news, just so one of your players in your lineup doesn't get traded. If that does happen, they're not going to be scoring fantasy points today. So make sure you're up to date on news as we get closer to lock, because you don't want one of your guys shipped off before they start playing today. Now, before we get into it, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS, and all the best ball. Quick look at our good old new best ball tools. We have the projections up. We have adjustments that you can make to the projections if you really want to target certain people, players, teams, schedules, whatever you want. I love the tool. Think it's a ton of fun. And now let's get into the slate. So please like, comment, and subscribe to our video. As always, we are going to start off on the perfect lineup, and then we will get into, speaking of best ball, apparently one of my slow drafts, I have a pick to make. So we'll start off with yesterday's perfect lineups, the winning lineups, get into today's slate with the pitchers to consider, as well as some stacks to consider. So the FanDuel perfect lineup had Bailey Ober, and then all one-offs. It's a pretty wild slate. We had a guy at 2,800, two guys at 2,800 actually, that you pretty much had to have. Lux and Xavier Edwards both went low-owned, both went nuts. Lux was hitting in the top of that Dodgers lineup. Just shows you where that Dodgers lineup is right now. They are just majorly hurting with injuries, or Freddie Freeman's case, I think it was bereavement list or personal list, some family matter he had to go to. Anyways, pretty far off the 35K total. 345.8 was the perfect lineup score. 231.6 was the winning lineup. So 130 almost off of the perfect lineup. And the lineup went to Bailey Ober as the pitcher. The winner was Leo 974. Forgot that stay that first there. He won 20K. Congrats to him. So we went with Bailey Ober, and he went with a lineup that I absolutely hate. At least there is a little bit of correlation, because we have Berger and Edwards from Miami. We have Martinez and Noel for Cleveland. So it is a 2-2. There is a little bit of correlation there, but he could have had more and still got it done. He just got extremely lucky. Nailed the Noel pick at 10% owned. Nailed the Edwards pick at 4.8% owned. Schwarber at only 15%. And then outside of those, I mean, it's not like anybody else did anything that wild. So he definitely could have had a little more correlation and still won. Let's take a look at what the second place lineup is. Oh, another all one-offs. Wild. So just a day of one-off people come together. They had Bryce Miller over Ober, which is why they didn't win. Their hitters are actually better, but this guy nailed the Ober one. So congrats to them. Let's check out DraftKings lineup now. So we got Bailey Ober. We have River Ryan, who had himself a day. 5.2 innings, 1 earned run, 8 Ks. So congrats to River Ryan. And then all one-offs again for that perfect lineup. But then the winning lineup went to C. Menzel, and this guy won by 3 points, had Bailey Ober, had Doug Peterson, or David Peterson, I mean. And then once again, pretty much all one-offs. He has some correlation here with Miami. He has same game correlation here, but doesn't really mean much in baseball. So all in all, congrats to them. They won. It was a tough day to be a stacker, but you're still able to make some money stacking, and I will always say that is the way to go. As we often see, it is a 5-2-1 in DraftKings that wins, and on FanDuel, there's some sort of 4-man stack generally. Now, let's get into the lineups for today. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe our video. Helps us a ton. Helps us push this algo and just be able to give more content out for free. Now, highest owned pitcher, Alec Marsh, 28% owned. Interesting slate when you have Alec Marsh being a favorite. Guy hasn't been that great. He's had a couple good starts, which has shown, a little bit of upside in them, but all in all, 4.22 FIP over his last 20, 5.66 over his last 5. Shown a little more strikeout upside lately with a 24% K rate. But all in all, he's not in a great spot. It could be a better spot, though, he is in a very good spot, and it could be a very good spot if the White Sox make another move today, which would mean most likely that either Roberts or Pham aren't in the lineup, which is definitely a possibility. Does it happen? Who knows? But all in all, it's very hard for me to trust Alec Marsh being chalk. So that is my one worry here. He hasn't been in great form. He is away. It's Alec Marsh, though. Now, this White Sox team is absolutely awful. The lineup is terrible. And over the last 20 games versus righties, they're hitting 194 with a 105 ISO and a 244 WOBA. Literally doesn't get worse than that. They're striking out at 20%. This is the best matchup Alec Marsh can have. And I still don't trust him when he's chalk because he still has a 4.22 FIP. And he's been bad lately. So, am I going to have some of him? Maybe. I'll probably have a little. I wouldn't say totally fade him. It is the White Sox. But all in all, I'm not loving him being almost 30% owned. Nick Pivetta, another guy that is very inconsistent. But at least with Pivetta, we have very good numbers. 3.33 FIP over his last 20. 2.46 over his last 5 with a 34% K rate. We know he has that strikeout upside. We know he has big time game upside. Now, he is versus a Seattle offense that is striking out almost 39%. They can hit the ball hard, but all in all, it is not a very good offense, and adding Randy Arozarena doesn't all of a sudden make them way better. Julio Rodriguez is still out. I am absolutely game to go to some Pivetta here. I wish he was lower owned, but I'm very, very intrigued. The upside at 8.5K is just so high. Next, we got Paul Skeens. It is a Skeens shove day, and he obviously should be one of the chalkier guys. Now, he's in a very tough matchup versus Houston, but this kid is incredible, and I don't mind going back to him. It is one of the harder matchups that he will have had so far, so maybe have a little more reservations with him, but all in all, he is insane. He's great. 34% K rate, 2.62 FIP. StatCast data is absolutely unbelievable. The only thing going against him is the opponent splits. Houston's a solid offense, and they've been hitting the ball decently lately, so do with that what you will. Next, Colin Ray. Colin Ray is definitely my favorite value spot for today. One, it's versus the Braves. They haven't been able to hit water falling out of a boat. They just haven't been good. I'm sorry, Ryan, if you heard that. I know it hurts, but your team's been awful lately. And Colin Ray's actually been surprisingly good. A 2.94 FIP over his last 5, 4.35 over his last 20. So you're looking at a guy that is cheaper than Alec Marsh, has more K upside in the short term, a lower FIP in the short term, pitching better currently, but a very similar over 20 FIP. And the matchup, yeah, it is not quite as good as going against the White Sox, but it's still decent. They're striking out a lot. The average is low. The WOBA is low. The ISO is high. So they're hitting the ball hard. But all in all, I like Ray, and he's been better at home. 38% more fantasy points at home with a 26% combined K rate. I think Ray should be getting a little more love than he is ownership-wise, and I absolutely would take him over Alec Marsh. Next, we got Logan Gilbert in Boston at Fenway. There is some upside because Boston strikes out, but they are very good versus righties. They have a ton of lefties they can shove at Gilbert here, and they've been crushing the ball lately, hitting 311 versus a righty, 216 ISO, 385 WOBA. They've done well versus Gilbert in the past. However, Gilbert earlier this season at home did go 7 innings, 1 earned run for 8 Ks. I could go either way on this one. I don't mind having a little bit of Boston. I would not go overboard with a Boston stack, but I wouldn't mind having some Gilbert also. Next, we got Jake Bloss, 6,600. Him being 20% owned is just wild to me. I don't expect him to be that high. I really don't like this spot for him. I think this Boston offense can get to him a little. They do at least have a high ISO. WOBA's low, but they can hit the ball hard. Wouldn't be surprised if they hit a home run or two. After all, Bloss has allowed 5 home runs in 3 starts, total of 11 innings and 5 home runs. He's allowing 48% fly balls, 32% hard contact. I don't love the spot for him. I think Pittsburgh offense is a little bit better than people give it credit. And O'Neal Cruz is hot right now, so Bloss is not really where I want to go. Nathan Eovaldi, I think he is a low-owned play that I'm pretty intrigued with. 3.81 FIP over his last 20, 3.43 over his last 5. The K rate's in the 24% range. StatCast data looks fine. A little too many barreled balls. He is averaging less fantasy points away, so that is the one thing you really got to be worried about. And St. Louis has been hitting righties much better lately. 283 average, 174 ISO, 338 WOBA. But all in all, I'm still intrigued. I think Eovaldi has big time upside as he showed against the White Sox last week, going 7 innings and 10 Ks. And I still don't fully respect this Cardinal offense, even though they've been hitting a little bit better as of late. All in all, at low ownership, 9,300, I'm a bit intrigued. Simeon Woods Richardson, I don't mind. The only thing is that it is against a hot-hitting Mets team, but he is a value guy I would contemplate going to. This Cubs versus Reds game, we do need to worry about weather a little bit, so make sure you watch that as we get a little closer. We do have widespread storms around Cincinnati, so does one pop up over the ballpark? Possibly. To really know, we got to watch. Jordan Montgomery, my worry is he only went 62 pitches last game versus KC. Say he gets into 80. I just don't think his upside is there for me today, so I'm probably out. But I think he's finally kind of coming around and being usable this back half of the season. So I'm out today, but I will be thinking about him soon. Grant Holmes looking to get the start for the Braves. So he's been pitching well. July 24th, he went 52 pitches. So maybe he's like 65-ish today. He's only 4K. And for that reason, I would consider him. But he is allowing 48% or almost 49% fly balls and 34% hard contact. So there is some worry with him. But at 4K, if he can get you, into the 5th inning, possibly give you a win and, mid-teens or something like that, he becomes super interesting. Upside is extremely limited, but at 4K, I would at least consider. Do I love the spot? Absolutely not. But he's only 4K. I mean, can he give you 15? Yes. And if he does that, I'm kind of on board with it. Outside of that, I'm probably pretty much out. Quintana his ERA has been well, but 5.63 FIP and a 5.1 over his last 20. StatCast data somehow looks good, but the guy is just getting blown up. He's just not who he used to be. And this Minnesota Twins offense can hit. So I don't really love that spot. Don't really love the others either. Mitchell Parker has shown some high upside in a few games, but Diamondbacks are hitting too well for me, so I'm not really going there either. Let's get over to FanDuel. All right, so FanDuel, highest owned pitcher, Nick Pivetta. No surprise here. I think he should be one of them, with Paul Skeens right underneath. Now, Paul Skeens is 11.5K, so just super expensive and in a tough matchup. It is, you got to have a little bit of reservation there, just because he is so expensive. You have Nick Pivetta, both of them very similarly owned. Pivetta's, his FIPS aren't all that much different, and he's in a better spot than Skeens. Has that high K rate, high upside. I don't mind going some Pivetta over Skeens in this spot. Now, that is very scary to say, and I'm definitely going to have some of both these guys. But just, you're talking about a lot, 2.1K less, and similar upside. So I don't mind going there. Alec Marsh coming in the third highest owned. I think that's wild at 8,200. It is the White Sox, but he's never given us 50. He can give us, low 40s, mid 40s, but he's not going over that. And I think that between Gilbert, Skeens, Pivetta, one of them is going to go for 50 plus, and we'll probably need them. Colin Ray is at 8.9K. I wish he was cheaper. He has shown upside lately, but it's another spot where he hasn't done 45 plus all season long. Do I really expect it to be here? Probably not. And I think you're going to need 45 plus out of your pitcher. Nathan Eovaldi could do that. He is 10.4K though. We know that when he gets it rolling, his K stuff is much better than 25%. Ends up being more like 27, 28%. He has the ceiling to get us 50, 60s. So I'm not canceling him out, but, there's a reason he is 2% owned and Skeens, Pivetta are 30 plus. They are clearly the best option. Gilbert is a little interesting as well. Those four are probably taking all my ownership. May sprinkle in, Ray or Marsh, but probably not. And if I do, it'll just be, a couple lineups here and there. Now, let's get into stacks. So, as I said, weather-wise, we got to watch the Cincinnati game. Outside of that, everything looks like it's going to play. And it is an interesting slate where, you have an hour and a half between the 5-10 games and the last game of the night. So this last game is going to be important to watch. It's going to be, going on for an hour and a half or so solo. So there could definitely be some risers there. So our highest value stacks of the day, Pittsburgh. No surprise to me whatsoever. I'm not a big fan of Bloss. He just hasn't been good. He's allowed, like 3.5 home runs per 9, something like that. And I think Pittsburgh's decent. And O'Neal Cruz, if he's in the lineup, he has been crushing it lately. So I'm absolutely on board. Look what Cruz has done over the last really month or so. I think Pittsburgh offense is rolling a little bit. Don't mind going there. Now let's check our highest owned stacks. Just checking news real quick just to make sure there's no trade that happened while we were talking here. All right, Kansas City Royals, highest owned versus Chris Flexen. Guess it's not really much of a surprise. 9.5 game total, second highest on the slate, or actually tied for the highest on the slate. Flexen's been terrible. The bullpen behind him is terrible. Royals can hit, and they can score in a lot of different ways. It's no surprise people like them. Cubs versus Carson Spires. Now, if this game plays, Cubs are a little interesting. It is in Great American Small Park. It is warm. We know the ball travels. It's a Great American Small Park. It makes sense that Cubs are coming in a little higher owned. Let's go over to our highest projected now. And our highest projected stacks of the day, Pittsburgh and the Royals. I said I liked, stacking Pittsburgh over using Jake Bloss. The ownership's not that high. Makes a lot of sense to want to go to Pittsburgh. Not only are they value, we can pay up to Paul Skeens. We can get a decent offense that has a ceiling. You can just do a lot. So Pittsburgh makes a ton of sense. KC makes a ton of sense. Boston versus Logan Gilbert. They've got to him before. I don't love the spot for Boston, but they are good versus righties, so at least intrigued. And I would say on the other side of this, I don't mind some Seattle stacks against Pivetta. If Pivetta is super high owned, we know he's inconsistent and he can get lit up. Seattle just came off a weekend where they were hitting the ball pretty well. Can they do it another day? Maybe. And I don't mind taking a little bit of chance there. Our highest ceiling stack for the day, Boston versus Gilbert and Arizona versus Parker. I like that Arizona one a lot. They've been hitting well. Parker, his 5.69 FIP over his last 4 FIP on the year. He's been decent, but he can get got. Kansas City versus Jamison Tyone. Tyone's been pitching really well lately, but it's Great American Small Park, and the Cincinnati offense is kind of boom bust. When they boom, they really do boom. So definitely a bit intrigued by there. Let's check the teams tab real quick. Our highest implied run total is KC. Cubs are next at 5, with the Reds also at 5, and Arizona at 4.9. So those are obviously the most interesting one. We got Boston at a 4.6 implied run total, with Minnesota at 4.5 and Mets at 4.5. All of them are interesting. As far as lower owned stacks that become interesting, Seattle versus Eovaldi. I like Eovaldi, but he also can get hit kind of like Pivetta, where he can be a little inconsistent. The bullpen behind him is terrible. So for that reason, I'm a little more interested in St. Louis. White Sox versus Alec Marsh. We got leverage here. So I'm slightly intrigued on that. Marsh isn't great, and he's getting a lot of ownership. White Sox can't hit very well whatsoever, but at least the bullpen's bad behind Marsh. And there's leverage. It is only a game 3 play. I don't love that option, but game 3 wise, you got to be at least a little bit intrigued. And if you really want to go game 3, Houston versus Skeens, you're talking about a good offense. Skeens hasn't had a bad outing yet, and I mean, we're in the major leagues. Eventually, he's got to have one, and the bullpen behind him isn't great. I would not go heavy on that stack, but having a little bit of it, could definitely vault you up the leaderboard if it works, but it's just not likely to work. So if you're going that way, very small amount of your bankroll. All in all, you're likely going to want to start, keep to the first half of this list, but I think there are some interesting ways to go. Texas is starting to get a little hot. Palante is allowing a high average exit velocity, high hard contact rate. It's not the worst thing can go at low ownership. Now, that'll do it for us today, guys. Have a good one. We will be back tomorrow. Good luck. Let's make some money. Peace.